Counting down, and there we go. We are live. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. What's going on? I've got the Legion, and I've got Rody CCW in with me tonight. We're going to be talking a little bit about the Kavanaugh hearing, which was a freaking clown show, guys. Okay, so I chained myself to the desk and I watched the whole thing. I can get away with that because I had a shitload of work to do, and I was going to be chained to the desk anyway. But wow, there's a lot to cover here. There's a lot to go through, and a lot of people have already gone through it. But we're going to talk about it tonight. So here's my big takeaways. The big takeaways are these. Dr. Ford showed up with no new evidence, and she even backwalked a lot of her evidence. For one, we got the clear dispute on her fear of flying, because of course we all know that the hearing was delayed by a week because she said she was afraid to fly. And then that lovely little prosecutor broke out and she said, well, what about when you flew to Hawaii and you flew to Maryland last week, and then you flew back from Maryland last week, and then you flew here, and then you flew here, and then you flew here? It's like, well, and she said, well, it's easier when you don't have the added anxiety of the hearing. I'm like, okay, so I'm afraid to testify in front of Congress as your legitimate defense? No, sunshine. This is not how the law works. So she brought no new evidence. Everybody that she's named as a witness, as a contemporary witness that can corroborate her story, has absolutely denied in writing under penalty of felony that, and there is a distinction there. It's under penalty of felony, not penalty of perjury, because they've made an official sworn statement. They haven't been sworn under oath. So there is a subtle difference there. Just for those of you that noticed that everybody kept saying under penalty of felony instead of under penalty of perjury. It is an important distinction.
You have to be in person to commit felony perjury.
Because under penalty of felony makes it trickier to play the perjury trap game. But then we get Kavanaugh. And of course, now we're seeing all these headlines in the major newspapers and comments on social media. Oh, he got mad. He clearly doesn't have the temperament to be a judge. Okay, look, and I apologize. I try to stay off the fuck words, but it might be hard tonight. So we'll see how that goes. If I am falsely accused of a crime, and the standard of proof that I'm expected to engage is that I suddenly bear the burden of evidence to prove the negative, yeah, I'm going to be upset. I'm going to be angry, because you have literally placed me in an impossible position. God exists. You can tell me I'm wrong. You can argue that I'm wrong. But I defy you to offer me evidence that the statement is false. So he's being presented with a non-falsifiable statement, and then it is being demanded that he falsify the statement. And even though it is the case that it is impossible to prove a negative, that's why the alibi is so important. As soon as I heard Kavanaugh was bringing in his calendars from that time, I knew we were going to start hearing wibbly bullshit about, oh, well, who's handwritten calendars? He could have just made those up. Okay. For starters, there is a standard of evidence. There is a precedence in law for the use of personal journals and calendars as evidence, especially for the establishment of alibis. And even when the verification of that kind of evidence is not sufficient to admit that evidence as an alibi, the presence of those calendars gives you the ability to contact relevant persons so that you have witnesses to the alibi to corroborate. corroboration of the statement. That's a big thing, especially when the counterclaim does not contain such corroboration. So you have corroborative evidence and the journals. Another thing about the journals, not only can journals be verified and cleared into evidence for actual court proceedings, never mind the sham that this hearing was, but Kavanaugh has been a lawyer for a long time, a lawyer and a judge. It is a common habit. My Uncle Bobo did it. We talked about it before. I do it because my Uncle Bobo did it. He's the one that taught me it was a good idea and why. Bobo would always get the big, like here's mine from last year. I keep the big ass desk calendar on my desk and I write down things on it, where I was, what I've been doing, who I was with, blah, 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 blah. And so those can absolutely be entered. It is a habit of attorneys, especially, to keep such a journal for billing purposes, for evidence purposes, and so on. And even if the journal can't be verified into evidence, it lets you know who to contact to corroborate claims made by the journal, because at a minimum the claims are made. So there we go. I'm going to go ahead and cut it loose. We're probably going to dig deep on this tonight. If we have time, I would also like to talk about some tax cuts, because my man Donnie Two Scoops snuck another tax cut in on us while everybody was listening to this goofy bitch from California lying in her little 10-year-old voice, in her little squeaky voice and her pretty pose, so that she looks small and pretty and meek, and you have to believe her because children don't lie, even when they're 50 and clearly lying. But hopefully we can have a little bit of a conversation about what the tax cuts mean as well, because I'm hearing people dig into this idea that there's a double standard between Republicans and Democrats on the question of the national debt and who's in charge. That's not untrue, but it's incorrect. Or maybe I have that the other way around. It's not incorrect, but it is somewhat untrue, and I'd like to unpack that a little bit later. But first, let's dig in on the hearings. We're bringing in Steve.
Yeah.
And Legion.
Hello, world.
So, Legion, go ahead and give me what are your first? Do you mind if I use your real name?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm Mario.
Okay, Mario.
May I offer something first?
Yeah, give me your first.
The moment that I saw that Drudge headline, right, and it showed the calendars of Kavanaugh that he kept when he was 17 years old. The first thing I thought was that this man perfected weaponized autism well before the internet age, and this guy is so squared away. I don't think the Democrats really understand who they're fucking with, or who they're challenging here. Secondly, as to the claim that those calendars are not actually authentic 1982 calendars, I assure you, in 1982, I was a 2-year-old toddler, and I had a penchant for eating paper. And those calendars look exactly like something I would have munched on in my very early years. So they're authentic.
Well done, sir.
But yeah, like, how squared away is this guy? Kept calendars when he was 17? I mean, seriously, what voice in the back of his mind told him to keep that in a box somewhere in the attic that he might need it one day? Come on, talk about prescience. It's amazing.
Well, just to speak to that, and I think it has to do with Chris's history with that idea with the calendars. If I'm not mistaken, weren't both of Kavanaugh's parents legal professionals?
His mother was a district judge in Maryland, who actually foreclosed a home of Ford's parents. So, in case you might not have heard that, there is kind of a revenge subplot that
but
the mainstream media would not touch at all.
Right, but even on the other side of it, there was nothing there because she actually supported that other family in that. She did not take the house away. She ruled that the foreclosure wouldn't stand in that trial.
Correct. Yep. Anyway, there's a
but Kavanaugh did point out that it was his father's habit of keeping a journal, or rather keeping a calendar / journal, that got him doing it to begin with. And like I was saying, it is a habit of attorneys to do such a thing.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess the fundamental issue here, and we can talk about, let's just go ahead and term it the tyranny of the gynocracy, right? So, I mean, even if the guy was a Democrat, let's say it was whatever. It's a Democrat nominee for the Supreme Court, and it's a man, and he gets his Me Too moment from a woman accusing him of some kind of sexual assault, and even before that, like, maybe we should unpack like how perverted or how corrupted even the term sexual assault has become. I mean, it literally means I looked at you the wrong way for more than 5 seconds and held my gaze. Could be sexual assault at this point. But anyway, I mean, do we really want to live in a world where the actions of a minor can come back to literally destroy his entire life legacy and that of his family 36 years after the fact with no corroborating evidence? What kind of madman wants to live in that type of society? Like, why? What insanity is driving the Democratic leadership to even provoke such responses without any thought whatsoever to how this could come back on them in the end? I presume that they just assume that Republicans and conservatives will be simply too moral and too ethical to ever use the same tactics against them. Either way, I mean, it's whatever. I'm just bloviating, but it is shocking and disgusting, and I really can't believe it's come to this point. It's straight up 100% Saul Alinsky rules for radicals is what you see at the Senate Judiciary Committee today. Absolute subversion, communist madness. Anyway, Steve, Lowry, back me up or whatever.
Back me up or whatever? Yeah, sure.
The biggest thing that I take away from it purely is the idea you have to keep the thoughts separated because we are not in a trial here. This was simply a public hearing, and it stemmed out of a job interview, essentially. So all these things that are being thrown around don't have to be proven. All they have to do is cast a bad light on somebody and hopefully change confirmation votes. If anything goes beyond that, there will have to be suit filed. I suppose what would be their home court wherever this was supposed to happen. I'm not sure she knows which county that would be in because from what I gather, she doesn't remember which one it was that it happened. The flip side of that is it scares me, as Mario had already touched on, the fact that just the idea you can accuse somebody and therefore their entire lives, their livelihood should be ruined, their families should be brought into it and threatened, and those kind of things. That being an acceptable way to disagree with anybody really doesn't fit a country I'd like to be a part of.
Do you know how you'll absolutely know 100% that they're full of shit? If he doesn't get approved, if he doesn't get approved or voted into the Supreme Court, and they don't pursue his impeachment for the district court in D.C., you'll know they were fucking full of shit.
That's true.
But hey, you got to believe Dianne Feinstein. She hired a Chinese spy for 20 years to be her personal driver. She's credible.
So Cameron's in here, but he's muted.
And he's still muted. But that is a great shot of his neck beard.
I'm glad you like my neck. Am I coming through? Can you give me thumbs up if I'm coming through? Somebody? Okay, excellent. Yeah,
loud and clear. Loud and clear.
Yeah, I hope you're not saying something clever, Chris, because I'm not hearing it. I have to turn my speakers down in order to bloviate, so my bad. But I just wanted to say that I honestly considered not even joining this, even though this is a topic I feel very passionate about, because so many people have already got their mind made up. And it's really terrifying to me to realize how deep it runs, because I listen to the whole thing. I have a job where I work outside doing pest control. So I literally just listen to the whole thing on my app, on the phone. And she is not a credible witness. The most important fact of the day is that there are 6 people that were supposed to be there for this sexual assault. One of them says there was a sexual assault. The other 5 people say it looks like this party didn't even happen. And that fact doesn't matter to anybody. So I just wanted to jump in and throw that in real quick. I'm going to mute myself so you guys can go back to it. If I have something else I want, I promise I will be, obtrusive and jump in. So
you look like you prepared for the show by washing your face with a Clorox wipe after a 7-day bender.
Hey, sometimes you just do what's necessary. By that I mean the bender, not the Clorox.
Cheers, mate.
To Julie's point, there beware of large gatherings of like-minded, ignorant folks. Yeah, that's pretty fair. But always beware of stupid people in large groups.
So, yeah, it's the mob mentality definitely took a hold of the Dems over this whole thing. You get most people have a higher mob threshold in the I don't know, guesstimated 20 to 30 area, but all it takes is 1 or 2 people whose mob activity threshold is in the 1 or 2 point area. And then you just need 1 idiot to smash a window, and 2 or 3 people with a 1 point mob threshold are suddenly a 4 or 5 person mob. And now the number of people with the 5 point threshold make it rapidly turn into a 100 person mob. And it doesn't take long for that shit to snowball. And that's how the mob mentality turns normal, rational human beings into violent, wild animals, into hordes of city-smashing, black-clad, face mask, bike lock-wielding, Molotov cocktail-throwing madmen. Personally, my mob threshold is in the 5 to 6 area, but my mob response mentality is, okay, that's how many wild yackles I need to see before I just start opening fire.
Joys of self-defense.
Yeah, all jokes aside, I think this is what happens when you've got senators that come out within 24 hours of Brett Kavanaugh being nominated, saying things that he's evil and he's going to repeal Roe v. Wade, even if it kills women, and all these sorts of things. Because if we're going to accuse Dr. Ford of being, let's be charitable and say less than honest, there's got to be a motivation for it. And if you really believe that this man becoming a judge is some super evil thing because Trump nominated him and he's a strong male and all that other ridiculous shit that's wrapped up in this issue, it's something that, Chris, you've talked about several times before with amorphous warfare. You can sort of give people their marching orders without directly giving them orders, and you can just be an autonomous cell that decides to activate. One point that I really think is worth noting is that if Dianne Feinstein had this letter and she really thought that it was the most credible letter she'd ever gotten, man, there would have been an investigation already. That's That's one of the things that Ted Cruz's portion of the testimony really pulled out. Not only did he completely destroy Dr. Ford's testimony in just a few sentences, but he goaded Dianne Feinstein into having an argument with him about holding the letter and why it was important that she held the letter, and that the FBI could have completely done an investigation discreetly behind the scenes without it being a media circus. And the very thing that the Democrats are now demanding, well, why won't you have an FBI investigation? Mr. Kavanaugh, if you're such a good man, why don't you call for an FBI investigation? I know the answer to that, and it's because he's part of the judicial branch, and he's not supposed to tell the executive branch what to do. He's supposed to interpret the laws and make judgments in specific situations.
All right,
so,
hey, Cameron, I've got the clip.
Oh, you do?
Can I jump in?
Oh,
real
yeah,
quick?
because yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
They really do reveal their hand in showing that the FBI truly is the, is the main weapon of the deep state, don't they? That they're always calling for the FBI to do a full investigation of literally anything that they don't like, right?
Oh, yeah.
Secondly, a second other point is, so you know that Dr. Chrstine Ford's, all of her social media accounts were deleted and scrubbed prior to her revelations being made known and like her name being attached to it. So some of that stuff is being unearthed, and she is a regular pussy hat wearing, Fema riot, attending. She's one of the crazies in the streets with the pink hats, okay, marching at anti-Trump this, anti-Trump everything, okay. So there's a clear political bias, all right.
Oh yeah. If I had been a senator and I had been able to ask any question I wanted, the first question I'd have asked her is, who did you vote for in the 2016 election?
Yeah, it's a legitimate question. I mean,
it is. Yep.
Let's be honest. We're here in the Senate Judiciary Committee. This is the Capitol building. Whether you like it or not, it's political, and we all know it. So let's drop the pretense here right now.
Yeah, you actually have more credibility if you just admit, oh yeah, I voted for Hillary. I'm totally a Democrat. But that's not.
I would agree.
Yeah, but they don't want to because they realize how bad it makes them look because, they're full of shit.
All right, here's the clip.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Judge Kavanaugh, you and your family have been treated incredibly poorly by...
Can everybody hear it okay?
Yeah, I can hear it.
Yep.
Democrats and by the media. And let me say also, I think Dr. Ford and her family have been treated incredibly poorly by Senate Democrats and the media. You have both seen your good names dragged through the mud. And this has been, sadly, one of the most shameful chapters in the history of the United States Senate. Let me say to you and your family, thank you for a lifetime of public service. I will say, watching your mother's pained face has been heart-wrenching as she's seen her son's character dragged through the mud.
Pause.
Not only your lifetime of public service, but her lifetime of public service as well.
Did you say pause?
Yeah, pause.
Okay.
Look at the guy behind him over his right shoulder. Like this dude, he wants to be his hype man. He wants to be that guy who's like, oh, damn, oh, what? Oh, Cruz. Oh, no, Cruz, don't do him like that. Oh, damn. Like, look at this guy. All right. Anyway, continue. Completely irrelevant interjection here.
I love your fucking salad.
And I know there's been nothing.
I thought you said a small side salad, dude.
That's a legit ass salad, baby.
This is a real salad. I've got 3 types of lettuce. Okay, check them. Back to Cruz. I'm sorry, I just derailed you. My fault.
That the media is airing. I also believe, though, that the American people are a fair-minded people.
Look at him.
American people can set aside the partisan warfare of Washington and look to substance.
Wow. This face. Look at these faces. Look at these faces. Jesus Christ. Look. I mean, just pure disgust.
Jeez.
damn. Boom, boom, boom.
Wow. There's a lot to unpack there, and I just don't have the patience to do it. Look at his wife. Look at Kavanaugh's wife. She's just like,
right here.
Yeah, it's pretty reasonable. Yeah,
Yep.
Fair enough. Yeah, I agree.
And I don't. Who's this?
Thanks, bro.
Who's this?
What? This creature. This creature.
Yeah, I was asking where your Zoom was. Chris, take over the feed as primary because it keeps switching off on you.
Oh, I thought I had.
Now, I do know the one off his right shoulder is his wife, Ashley.
Uh-huh.
But beyond that, I don't know.
Right. Yes, she's the only one I recognize.
Now, there have been 3 different.
I mean, if this one over his left shoulder was a little skinnier, she could.
No, dude, it's Alyssa Milano. It's Alyssa Milano.
Yeah,
Look,
it is.
look over his right shoulder in the back.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's her.
It's Alyssa Milano.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she actually almost got removed.
Why are you there? What are you doing?
Feinstein invited her.
She was live tweeting the whole thing and actually got in trouble for trying to film it.
Yeah.
She paid. There was a Democratic senator who got like $100,000 check so that she could be right there in that frame.
No.
No. She was there to make faces. That's what she was there for. She was there to make faces.
It really is her. It's like from Charmed. She's just gonna cast hexes and shit, like from the back. It's like from... Sorry. Late Gen X, early millennial. I gave myself up.
Had so little, even the New York Times, which is no conservative outlet, refused to report on them because they could find no basis for it. And it was striking in this entire hearing that not a single Democrat in this committee asked about 2 sets of those allegations. Ms. Ramirez's allegations and the allegations of the client of Mr. Avenatti. Not a single Democrat. I don't know if they were just too embarrassed. Mr. Avenatti's allegations were so scandalous that the ranking member omitted his client's most scandalous accusations of you as a criminal mastermind, essentially. Omitted those scandalous accusations from her statement. This hearing has focused, rightly so, on the allegations Dr. Ford was on. And let me say, I think the committee did the right thing in giving Dr. Ford a full and fair opportunity to tell her story. That's what we needed to do when these allegations became public. And the committee treated her with respect, as we I do not believe Senate Democrats have treated you with respect. What do we know? We know that her testimony and your testimony are in conflict. A fair-minded assessor of facts would then look to what else do we know when you have conflicting testimony? Well, we know that Dr. Ford identified 3 fact witnesses who she said observed what occurred. All 3 of those fact witnesses have stated on the record under penalty of perjury. Recall what she is alleging happened. They have not only not corroborated her charges, they have explicitly refuted her charges. That's significant to a fair-minded fact. In addition, you've walked through before this committee your calendars from the time. Now, I will say you were a much more organized teenager than I was, and than many of us were. But it was a compelling recitation of night by night by night where you were in the summer of 1982. That is yet another contemporaneous piece of fact to assess what happened.
These fools coordinated their ties.
You look at him in the background, like he's getting animated. Senator Cruz is heavy. Like you can tell he's just waiting. He's at the edge of his chair. When Cruz is done, he just wants to get up, rip off his jacket, and yell out, "Yeah, yeah, yeah!" Now, who else want to fuck with West Texas, boy?
Well, you know what it is? If you have half a brain, and I think a large part of the reason why so many of the other senators hate Ted Cruz, because it's kind of an open secret that a lot of them on both sides of the aisle hate him, is because he's smart. And if you really listen to what he's saying, the points that he's making, that if you're a fair-minded, fact-based person, you can't ignore the fact that, and correction, I said 6 people and 5 of them dissented. It's actually 5 people and 4 of them dissent, but it's still the same basic thing, that there's one accuser and everybody else is scratching their head saying, oh, I can't even remember the party. And the fact that he lays that out is brilliant. That's why that guy's going to come out of his chair, because he's watching Ted Cruz on a mental level destroy everything with a flick of his wrist. He's like Goku bouncing freaking Frieza's beam off his hand. Like, it's nothing to him.
It's over 9,000. Okay.
Yes, it's over 9,000. This to me is why I think this is actually the most important part of the whole testimony, and the fact that he draws him into an argument about holding the letter afterwards. Like, 9 hours, and I honestly think this 5 or 10 minutes right here sums up the whole thing perfectly.
Ted Cruz was a national debate champion in college on constitutional law. Okay, like, this man, what you're seeing here is someone who can draw you into an argument, present your argument, defeat your argument, and then double down on it without you ever even having to speak. Like, he's on autopilot. He just destroys you. It's not even funny.
I think that's part of why it was so important that he went toward the end. It allowed him to watch the majority of both sets of testimony so that he could very authoritatively present this argument. Anyhow, I'm not trying to interrupt. I think this is brilliant, but you guys keep interrupting, and I'm kind of.
I like how you said that. Yeah, he went to the end. He was the perfect bookend. You know what I mean? To Lindsey Graham's earlier, Samuel L. Jackson "Time to Kill," style fucking, soliloquy.
Yeah, it's.
Yes, I'm glad they die. I hope they burn in hell.
Yeah, like, I knew it was him. I recognized his voice because not many people talk like Lindsey Graham, but I still was. Am I hearing what I'm hearing? Like, it was. And yeah, so Ted Cruz was a fantastic way. And there was actually 2 senators that went after him, but only 2. Like, and he's the one that really, they have a big, long debate after this. Not terribly long, because, they got a testimony to get to. But as far as the proceedings go, they followed the rules the majority of the time. Like, this was the only time where anybody said, I'd like a point of special privilege, because after he roasts Di-Fi at the end of it, the first thing she does is say, hey, basically, I'm going to pull my senior Democrat card so I can argue back. And it's just such a brilliant setup on top of everything else. Anyhow, I really will shut up now. Thanks.
5:30. And for 60 days, that was 60 days ago, the ranking member did not refer it to the FBI for an investigation. The ranking member did not refer it to the full committee for an investigation. The ranking member, this committee could have investigated those claims in a confidential way that respected Dr. Ford's privacy. And some of the most significant testimony we heard this morning is Dr. Ford told this committee that the only people to whom she gave her letter were her attorneys, the ranking member, and her member of Congress. And she stated that she and her attorneys did not release the letter, which means the only people that could have released that letter were either the ranking member and her staff or the Democratic member of Congress, because Dr. Ford told this committee those are the only people who have it. That is not a fair process. And we should look to the facts, not anonymous innuendo and slander. For me.
Okay.
Another interesting thing is that Ford provided her anonymous letter, not to Dianne Feinstein herself, but to her representative from the House of Representatives. So there's an important distinction here and that you cannot be convicted of providing it's a felony to provide false statements to the Senate, right? But it's not a felony to provide a false statement to a representative. It was a representative who forwarded this stuff to Feinstein. So it's a very nuanced legal move to give it to the rep and to not the senator. Just wanted to add that. Just minor point.
No, that's excellent. That's actually something I did not know. So.
Oh no, it's not like somebody with a doctorate degree could be smart enough to understand how to insulate themselves 2 and 3 times over if they wanted to.
It's not like someone with a doctorate in psychology wouldn't know how to actually perfectly present yourself to appear as an innocent victim when in fact your absolute mendacity is off the fucking charts of anyone with any decency. Sorry, I use profanity again.
Okay, you know what? If we're just going to go down the rabbit hole, I will admit that as I listened to part of her testimony where she used a lot of $2 words to describe her profession and the way memories are formed, it almost sounded like
hippocampus.
Look, I'm not even trying to make fun of it.
Indelible in the hippocampus.
I'm just trying to point out that if I want to go full Alex Jones territory on it, I could see how she would deliberately say just the right things to if it really came down to it later, she could say, oh, well, I explained in open court how your memory can be incorrect. And because there was a lot of focus put on that. So, and I realized that might be a little far down the rabbit hole, but as I listened to it,
let me hit a few things real quick on that.
The only thing going through my hippocampus is the spirit of 1776. What?
So
that was an Alex Jones reference. Okay.
She did explain in great detail how memory works, and she got it wrong. And it's interesting that even in the way that she described it, she went out of her way to describe that certain parts of the memory. When you face a traumatic situation, certain things activate and certain things don't necessarily activate. Well, one of the things that absolutely activates, especially when you're talking about PTSD, when you're talking about diagnosed PTSD, a person doesn't just have a vague sense of wariness or terror involved. That's not what PTSD is. PTSD, the precise symptom is that you all but physically relive the trauma in excruciating detail over and over and over again. Additionally, the evolutionary part of the argument that the brain makes those connections, the location of danger is one of the most important pieces of information that the brain latches onto when recalling memories like that. You look at rats, for example. You can take juvenile rats that have never been exposed to cats at all, waft cat odor into the cage with them. They will scream, and they will freeze, and they will not move until the cat odor has dissipated entirely. And then they will not return to the place where the cat odor was experienced for several days, at which point they return with the pack. And they go and they scour and investigate the area where the cat odor was detected. And every rat that's close enough to hear the screaming of the rat that detected the cat odor also freezes and screams. It's the midnight howl, right? It's the torches on the hillsides. It's the lizard brain frickin' medulla oblongata breaking it out and having a pre-programmed evolutionary communication system precisely for threat detection and avoidance. No. I got your text.
Imagine being 3 inches tall and encountering a cat. You would feel the same.
So
unending horror.
Right. So the other thing, she had all those big words, and then she flubbed on exculpatory. I mean, this is not a complex word. It's not an uncommon word. what y'all were talking about with the very careful legalese setup going into it.
Hey, Chris, just real quick, but
Yeah.
If I'm all the way down the rabbit hole, I think it was even deliberate that it went on record that she does not understand what exculpatory means.
That's what I was about to say.
Oh, yeah, I stole your thunder. Hell yes.
That's what I was explaining. Okay, and then
It literally means in Latin that which was dug up.
Right.
There you go. That's my contribution. Thank you.
Yeah, to be inculpated is to be buried by the evidence. To be exculpated is to be exonerated by the evidence. Now, Cruz gave his wonderful piece, and then Di-Fi, well, she got desperate. And there's something really interesting here. This one's just over 3 minutes. I want to let it play straight, and then I want to talk about it a little bit.
Okay.
And then I want to take a short break to get more coffee and have a smoke. We can keep going for as late as you guys want. I know Steve and Cameron have to work in the morning. I know Mario and Cameron have to work in the morning.
There you go.
Yeah, I got to get up at 5, but I don't need a whole lot of sleep. I'm okay.
I have to get up at 4:30, and fuck you. I wish I was in bed right now.
Okay, so
I didn't mean to drop an F-bomb. Sometimes I forget we're live. Oh, it's been a while since we've done this.
It's okay. I've counted my own. I'm up to 3 so far. I'll be punished later. It's okay.
Yes, only Steve has behaved.
Say again?
The ranking member had these allegations on July 30th. And for 60 days, that was 60 days ago, the ranking member did not refer it to the FBI for an investigation. The ranking member did not refer it to the full committee for an investigation. The ranking member, this committee could have investigated those claims in a confidential way that respected Dr. Ford's privacy. And some of the most significant testimony we heard this morning is Dr. Ford told this committee that the only people to whom she gave her letter were her attorneys, the ranking member, and her member of Congress. And she stated that she and her attorneys did not release the letter, which means the only people that could have released that letter were either the ranking member and her staff or the Democratic member of Congress, because Dr. Ford told this committee those are the only people who have it. That is not a fair process. And we should look to the facts, not anonymous innuendo and slander.
Chairman, I ask for a point of personal privilege to respond.
Proceed.
Mr. Chairman, let me be clear. I did not hide Dr. Ford's allegations. I did not leak her story. She asked me to hold it confidential, and I kept it confidential.
And there it is.
Asked. She apparently was stalked by the press, felt that what happened, she was forced to come forward, and her greatest fear was realized. She's been harassed, she's had death threats, and she's had to flee her home. In addition, the investigation that the Republican majority is heralding is really nothing that I know about other than a partisan practice. Normally, all the witnesses would be interviewed. However, that's not happened. While the majority has reached out to several people, they did not notify me or my staff that they were doing this. And so to argue that we would not participate, but not tell us what they were up to is somewhat disingenuous. I was given some information by a woman who was very much afraid, who asked that it be held confidential. And I held it confidential until she decided that she would come forward.
Mr. Chairman, would the ranking member answer a question, please?
If I can.
I have great respect for Senator Feinstein. We've worked together on many topics, and I believe what you just said. Can you tell us that your staff did not?
I believe what you just said.
Can I, you know what? I'm just going to, maybe I'll show my ignorance here, but like when Cruz is speaking, I clearly understand exactly what he's saying, right? It follows like a logical flow of what he's saying. When Dianne Feinstein is speaking, honestly, I don't really understand what she's saying other than I didn't leak her testimony. Like, is what she's saying actually makes sense to you?
Barely.
No, it's completely disjointed. It's strictly legalese. It makes no sense to me.
It's not just legalese. It's unrehearsed legalese. It's off the cuff legalese, and it's desperate shuffle.
Yeah.
Hold on just a second.
Not leak it.
Oh, I don't believe my staff would leak it. I have not asked that question directly, but I do not believe
you know
they
that?
would.
I mean, how in the world did that get in the hands of the press?
The answer
Unless-
is no. The staff,
Have you
They did not.
have you asked your staff or other
I
staff
just did.
members on the Judiciary Committee?
pardon me? Well,
look at the hag. Look at the hag creeping over the chair.
Well,
And
somebody,
that's true.
well, somebody leaked it if it wasn't you.
Well, it was, I'm telling you, it was not, I did not. I mean, I was asked to keep it confidential. And I'm criticized for that too.
That's what happened.
Her too.
Yeah, so Di-Fi did a couple of things there. The biggest thing she did is she just straight threw Ford under the bus. They made the point. They made the claim. Look, it was either you or Dr. Ford or the representative. Well, I didn't do it.
Right.
Oh, now that's interesting. And then one of the things that Ford's claiming in conjunction with all the other associated trauma is that she had the press coming in and basically harassing her at work, coming into her classroom, this, that, and the other thing. And that's the only reason she chose to come forward, or that's a major reason that she finally chose to come forward, is because the press started harassing her over the letter. Now, try to follow this. I had a hard time following it in the testimony, because at first it didn't quite occur to me just how twisted the shit was getting. So the claim in operational order is that she sent the letter to her representative, which asked that her name be kept out of it, that it be kept confidential prior to the actual nomination of Kavanaugh. And then after he was nominated, she sent the, after Kavanaugh was nominated, rather, she had and that's Dr. Ford, had her rep forward the letter to Di-Fi.
Yes.
And then at some point, the reporters started coming and harassing her. Oh, wait. That point is after Ford herself sent another letter to, was it the Washington Post or the Washington Times? Apparently she only sent it to one news outlet.
It was the Washington Post. The Washington Times is relatively conservative.
Okay. So she sent it to WAPO.
Yeah.
And after she sent that to WAPO, so she's pitching a temper tantrum about how the reporters came for her. Bitch, you called them. You called them. You called a bunch of left-wing journo activists and told them you had the dirt that would hurt the Donald. You wanted them to come and find you. Now, I'm perfectly happy. I'm perfectly happy to entertain the notion that the GoFundMe campaign that has made her nearly $1 million or whatever, it's hard to track down the number. Apparently, there's several different GoFundMe campaigns in her name, and not all of them are legitimate. So it's hard to say whether she's made $500,000 or $20 million or whatever the number actually is. But I'm perfectly happy to entertain the claim that the GoFundMe campaign is tangential and separate and wasn't part of the plan. But let's be real. She's pulling down enough to she's pulling down enough money to have made this worth her while. And part of the problem with making claims of this nature is at present, there's no meaningful consequence for falsely accusing a man of sexual misconduct and ruining his life with no evidence whatsoever.
There is if you do it under oath before a Senate committee.
Apparently not. Because here's the thing. At best, her claim will never be proved and must be dismissed. Essentially, Kavanaugh gets acquitted in the court of public opinion for lack of evidence. But
the thing, her claim can't be proven and she can't be disproven. That's the thing.
Right, because her claim is non-falsifiable. It can never be. It can never.
It's 36 years ago, and there are no valid witnesses. So it's you believe what you want to believe. That really is. It's just like the enhancement of partisan politics on the issue.
That's well put.
Hey, brother, I just wanted to jump in and say good night. And if you could just let me filibuster for just a moment.
Yes.
Actually, don't. You can go ahead and chit and say what you want to say, Cameron. But it is 2100, so we're about to wrap this up.
Oh, okay.
Do me a favor and hang out for a minute after the wrap up, though.
Oh, you are killing me, Smalls.
Just for a minute.
I want a Paul Ryan style filibuster.
No, sorry. That is not what you were going to get.
Goddamn drones are going to kill me at the cafe, damn it.
I just wanted to say that for me personally, in many ways, this is actually a really personal issue. I won't go into who, what, when, where, why, because it's not my place. But there are people in my life that are true blue sexual assault survivors. So this is not an issue that I take flippantly. And I do understand in some cases women wait years before they talk about what happened to them for a whole complex set of emotional reasons. So for me to say that I doubt Dr. Ford is not actually something that I come to lightly. And it actually infuriates me on this issue because it's something that's such an emotional gut punch for so many people across so many spectrums. It just shorts out your ability to be logical and look at the evidence that's in front of you. And I even hesitated in coming on this stream, like I said in the beginning, because people get so upset by it and facts don't matter. But I guess at the end of the day, I don't want to live in a world where any one of my 3 sons can have a woman accuse him of a thing. And then because what she accused him of is so terrible, we have to take it seriously. Now he has to live under a cloud of suspicion, potentially indefinitely. My 5-year-old, who's about to be 6, last year at school actually got in trouble for a sexual harassment thing because he and another boy were playing with each other in the lunch line, and one of them touched the other's butt, and they both got written up specifically for grounds of sexual misconduct. And it scared my wife and I. Yeah, it scared my wife and I to death. Just like they're kids. They're 5 years old. They were just screwing around in the lunch line.
Have they not heard the concept of like the term grab ass games? There's literally a word for this. It's
No, see, but you can't even make a joke about that stuff anymore, Mario. You cannot say things like boys will be boys with all of the positive and negative connotations that go along with it. It's not excusing somebody's behavior, but it is acknowledging that certain things do exist in the world, like the fact that men are more likely to be sexual predators than women. That is a real truth. So I say all that to say when I feel like Ted Cruz nailed it, all of the evidence supports Kavanaugh and is exculpatory. I'm sorry, I don't know what that word means. No, you do know what that word means. Your name is Dr. Ford, right? And you can't figure out what exculpatory means in context after you've been sworn in front of a Senate panel? I just don't buy it.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
Okay.
I don't buy it either, Cam. Thank you. You know, I've got 3 daughters, and the fastest way they could get me to disown them would be to pull some heinous shit like that. To slander someone because let's be honest, by the time that my daughters, the oldest one being 7, are adults, if the paradigm doesn't change, we're going to be living in a world of female privilege where men are guilty until proven innocent. And if I don't know, man, you know what? It's an entirely different hour. How to raise moral daughters, how to raise moral sons. Maybe we should do that at some point. It's not worth unpacking at this point, but man, and you know, anyone with children, whether you got boys, whether you got girls, it doesn't matter. You look at the current political atmosphere. You look at the current level of discourse in this country, and you ask yourself, how do I manage this? How do I package this so that my children can understand it and defeat it? Or do I just do the normie thing and try to ignore it? I don't know, man. I don't know. There are you know, it's not just a Supreme Court nomination. There are existential, there are real cultural, societal, familial issues going on here. Because all of this crap, when it gets blasted 24/7 through the media, we have to interpret it for our own families. So, I don't know, man. I'm on a tangent. Someone reel me in.
No, I don't think that's off base because I had the same discussion with my 3 daughters who are all older than that and one into adulthood in college and, you know, in an environment where that does have a tendency to happen to people who make, you know, the kind of choices that put them in a position for it to happen. College kids like to party. Parties get out of hand. Not excusing the behavior, but it's what sets the stage. And they know as well as anybody, if anything were to happen, whether they call us, whether they talk to their best friend, whether they call 911, whatever, there's going to be a report made about things like this because there's no reason anything that punishable should wait 36 years to be brought out just on a whim. I don't understand the aversion to trying to tell about it otherwise. Granted, if something did happen to her, maybe it did and maybe it wasn't him. But if something did happen, I can't imagine, even in the early 80s, why you wouldn't tell somebody about it. And one of the people involved 4 to 6 weeks later, you see at a grocery store and you say hi. I'm no kind of psychologist. I don't know what drives people's actions to a level like that, but it doesn't seem natural to me.
Well, if you wanted to close on a positive note, Chuck Grassley has actually referred the Sedgwick woman or whatever, the one who accused Kavanaugh of being an actual gang rapist. He's referred her for the FBI for actual prosecution.
For criminal prosecution.
So hopefully this will stem the tide of baseless accusations coming against, you know, Kavanaugh.
And
at least for a minute.
Like, I was not a big fan of Roy Moore, but the way things went down around Roy Moore, it would not be reasonable not to be deeply suspicious of
they got their playbook. They got their playbook, didn't they, Lowry?
Oh, yeah.
They got that playbook.
But it goes further back. Look at Herman Cain.
Yeah, I was just about to say Herman Cain. I've hugged Herman Cain.
Look at Clarence Thomas. This has been done before.
Oh, yeah. The whole Anita Hill thing, there's a reason that's been discussed.
Pubic hair on a Coke can is what that entire hearing was about.
Yep. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a good talk. I would like to have gotten into some more stuff, But it is after 2100. We are done for the evening. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week at 2000 on Sunday evening. And until then, remember, if you build a man a fire, you'll keep him warm for the evening. But if you set a man on fire, he'll be warm for the rest of his life. Good night.